episode 2 of Inspired Money Live. Today we have The Art of Giving Back, a journey into the heart and soul of philanthropy. Now, I'm a big believer that good health requires different pillars: physical, spiritual, mental, and financial. To truly feed your spirit, it's said that the secret to living is giving. No matter how busy or broke you may be, you have something to offer others. And it doesn't have to just be about money. You can give your time, talents, and or treasures. In this episode, we're going to explore the profound philosophy of giving, the innovative models that are shaping social impact, the power of community engagement, the delicate balance between financial sustainability and ethics in nonprofits, and the transformative role of technology in reshaping the future of philanthropy. Together, we're going to delve into the love of humanity, the compassion that drives us, and the creativity that empowers us to make a difference. From ancient traditions to modern innovations, from grassroots change to global reach, we will uncover the essence of giving back. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate the art of generosity, the wisdom of collaboration, and the joy of connecting with one another. Indeed, every act of kindness contributes to a greater good that can result in a better world. Now let's welcome in our esteemed panelists. I'm so excited that all of them can join me. Some on very short notice, so I appreciate that. Scott Fifer is the founder and CEO of GO Campaign, previously a guest on Inspired Money. GO Campaign is a national nonprofit organization based in Santa Monica, California. The organization identifies and partners with grassroots organizations around the world to provide children with essential services, resources, and opportunities. At last count, I saw transforming the lives of 195,000 children. So welcome, Scott. It's great to have you back.
Great to be here. Thank you.
We also have Professor Richard Marker. He is principal of the Institute for Philanthropy Education and Strategy firm. He also teaches philanthropists and foundation professionals from around the world at UPenn's High Impact Philanthropy Academy. So thank you, Professor, for being here.
My pleasure.
And to round out our group, we have Amar Shah. Amar Shah, he's co-founder of Change, a donation processing platform that works with organizations like Brex, Porsche, and Care Of to power their charitable initiatives. So I think we have a really great mix of experience and ages, since the professor is known as the elder among the philanthropy world, and I think Amar is a younger guy.
Thank you so much for having me on here, Andy. I really appreciate it.
Excited to have you all. Let's jump right into segment 1. Philanthropy, the love of humanity, is more than mere charity. It's a profound philosophy reflecting compassion, empathy, and the desire to make a positive impact. Historically rooted in ancient traditions, it has evolved through the Enlightenment era to modern philanthropy, emphasizing strategic giving and long-term solutions. Philosophical foundations like altruism, utilitarianism, and virtue ethics guide the act of giving, while contemporary perspectives like effective altruism and corporate social responsibility shape today's philanthropic landscape. Ethical considerations ensure transparency, responsibility, and genuine motives. In a world facing complex challenges, philanthropy transcends financial support, fostering collaboration, innovation, and a virtuous cycle of generosity. It's not just about money. It's about our collective commitment to creating a better world, recognizing that every act of kindness contributes to a greater good. So this is very much a panel. I want all of our panelists to feel free to chime in when you want to say something. It can be a conversation. But let me kick things off. If we can start with Richard, how do you define philanthropy and how has your understanding evolved over time?
Fine, thanks. Appreciate that. It was an interesting lead-in to our conversation, and that just responding to that could take our full hour. So philanthropy is, from my perspective, is the voluntary utilization of one's resources, and I think that in the conversation for good, for public good, voluntary utilization of one's resources for public good. And I was happy in the introduction that you moved beyond just talking about money. That you identified that how people use various resources of their own, their time, their energy, their wisdom, matter a lot. As a matter of fact, as someone who does things around the world, the word philanthropy is very problematic in many cultures around the world, because it suggests that philanthropy to them says, oh, that's a Gates Foundation or a Ford Foundation or some super rich person. I'm not super rich. And so that there's some resistance to even using the word philanthropy, and they much prefer the word generosity, which is a word that you use. So I think that that's very important. So perhaps, so I don't take too much time now so we can have the conversation, but you asked about the evolution. So I'm a third generation in this. Although it frankly skipped a generation. But my grandfather was, by any definition, a philanthropist. But he was an old-style philanthropist. He was a noblesse oblige philanthropist. He was a giving back philanthropist, a complicated term. But at the end of the day, he gave because it made him feel good. And as I understood what he did in his time, it was wonderful. It was generous. He was in a position to do a lot of wonderful things. But he didn't really care about what the impact of his giving was. It really had a lot to do with him. He felt good, and he gave money all over the place to people it was a wonderful thing. But it was his emotional gratification that seemed to motivate him. In the current world, that's insufficient. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about philanthropy. There's nothing wrong with feeling a motivation to give back or noblesse oblige. But what we really are talking about today is, what impact do we have? What's the change that takes place because we've decided to use our voluntary resources to make a difference? And that can be very local, it can be national, it can be international, it can be organizational, but the focus on making the difference with our personal resources is the major change that's taken place in the philanthropy world, I would say, over the last generation or two.
Scott, what has been your experience? Because you identified a problem, and if I recall correctly, you started an organization that just started with a seed in your head and has grown into something much bigger, and the impact has only continued to grow over time.
Yes, for sure. It was a real organic growth of my organization, and just born out of the seed of wanting to help a group of 20 children in Tanzania. And it's now grown to, as you said, help over 195,000 children, and we've worked in 43 countries. And that's really been a response to the desire of others to want to give back and to want to help. It was never my intention originally to grow this large international nonprofit, but there was a need amongst donors who, while they appreciated giving to large nonprofits, they assume your money's going to do something good when you write a check to the Red Cross and large organizations. But when I started this organization 17 years ago, there wasn't a lot of immediacy and transparency that has become much more common with today's charities. And donors really want to know where their money is going and how they're helping, and they want that feeling of that they're really making a difference. And so I just started offering that naturally because it was just me, and I wanted everything to be transparent. I'm like, well, where do you want me to spend this $100? Or where do you want me to spend this $10,000? Do you want to spend it on the girls in Nairobi, or do you want to spend it on the kids in East LA? Or how about this local hero in Cambodia? I mean, and people then started bringing me local heroes. I know this guy in India who's working with girls. I'll raise money. You let me help you. And so that's been our model of finding these local heroes around the world. And following their insights and giving opportunity to children in their communities as they see best. But then also on the donor side, listening to donors. What do you want to do? What kind of impact do you want to have? Let me help you spend your money properly. And in fact, one thing I liked in that introductory video you showed is it said it's, philanthropy is just not just about charity. And we have a big Hollywood gala every year because I'm located in LA. And at last year's gala, I just mentioned sort of offhand, I said, our partners don't need our charity. They don't want our charity, but they deserve our what did I say? Oh my gosh, now I've forgotten my own words. They deserve our solidarity. And that really struck a chord with our donors and the people in the audience. And they came up to me and really said, that line about how it's not about charity, it's really about they deserve our solidarity. It really tweaked their way of thinking about how they were relating to giving back and what philanthropy meant to them. And I think that's becoming a powerful theme in giving, especially maybe among your generation, who really want to feel in solidarity with these people around the world and to try to level the playing field a little bit and alleviate some suffering.
Amar, I want to make sure that I'm saying your name correctly. So please make sure. Tell me how to pronounce your name so I don't get it wrong.
You got it right just when you said it. It's pronounced Amar, just like Hummer without the H.
Okay, thank you. You've been listening a lot as you put together this giving platform for corporations and employees to use. In that listening, what are you hearing? Are people intimidated by the word philanthropy? Should it be generosity? Like, what do you see people out there? What are they thinking?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on is, Scott, the way that you talked about it, where, over the past 20 years, there's causes, like your cause, that are doing the hard work. And the younger generation is very attracted to causes like this. And, just on the corporation side, by aligning with causes like the GO campaign, it's a way to build engagement, drive loyalty, really pique the interest of that younger generation. But the downside is that these corporations, when they think of the word philanthropy, they see it as a nice to have. It's not a need to have. And if you go and tell them, hey, it's going to take you 4 to 12 months to integrate this charity into a checkout campaign, or there's a bunch of new regulations that are coming out, so you're going to have to spend all these new dollars and new technical integrations you have to do to make it really easy, they're going to say, hey, why would I go and do this? It's going to take me a lot of time. I can just go write a check. But what the younger generation is really looking for is to see that impact on a day-to-day basis. They want that ongoing update. They want to see, hey, the GO campaign just helped those kids in East LA. And then also in a month later, it's now helping these people overseas. And, that's an incredible story. The nonprofits are doing all this hard work. What our goal is just making giving really, really, really easy. So that starts from the actual donation side, but it doesn't end there. It continues to get these impact updates from the nonprofit. And so these companies can tell the story to their end users, to their end customers, and really create that nice cycle of giving. And, it's a win-win-win for everyone at the end of the day.
Am I incorrect to assume that with the corporate aspect, a big component of it is corporate matching?
I think corporate matching historically has been a really big component. Just think about it as like internal giving campaigns where you're an employee, you can go make a donation and the company will match it. In the recent years, what we've seen is a lot of new corporate types of activations. And what has changed, what we really specifically focus on, is more customer giving experiences. So that can be things like running charitable sweepstakes for a nonprofit, the classic checkout campaign, donation matching, roundups, giving a percentage of purchase, embedding donations into a loyalty program, to even things like charitable NFTs. Employee giving is a great way to give back, but we really try to embed giving into more day-to-day actions.
I love that. Well, you mentioned charitable NFTs, so let's go to segment 2, which we're going to talk about innovation. In the dynamic world of philanthropy, innovation is key to maximizing social impact. From social entrepreneurship, blending business acumen with social mission, to impact investing, aligning financial returns with positive change. Collaborative philanthropy breaks down barriers, fostering partnerships across sectors, while technology-driven models leverage AI and blockchain to revolutionize philanthropy. Social impact bonds, corporate social responsibility, and cutting-edge collaborative models are reshaping how we approach social good. These innovative pathways are not just trends, they are the future of philanthropy, making it more inclusive, effective, and aligned with our global challenges. As we embrace these models, we unlock new potentials, driving meaningful change and inviting everyone to be part of this exciting journey towards a better world. At GO Campaign, you successfully work with local heroes that provide small grants to grassroots organizations. Can you share an inspiring example of collaborative philanthropy in action?
Yeah, I mean, and just since we were just speaking about the corporate side too, there's a company named Body, which is formerly known as Beachbody, and they're a very large, well-known fitness company that created programs like P90X, and they have all kinds of innovative fitness technology now. When they went public in 2021, they wanted to do something big and make a statement. They didn't want to just go public and make it all about, you know, their shareholders making money. They're like, we want to give back as part of this moment. And so I was really proud of them for wanting to do that. Not all companies take that time and think about that. And so they said, we want to give $1 million away on that day. And how do you think we can do that? And they were thinking about giving it to a few different international health charities. And they really just wanted my advice about, did I think that was a good charity? And so I gave them my thoughts. I'm like, yes, that could be great. If you want to do that, you can do that. And then, of course, I had to, you know, slip in a little a plea for one of our local heroes. I said, or if you wanted to, there's this woman in Chicago who's a Black female police officer, and exactly the kind of person we should be empowering on Chicago's South Side to help kids. And she's trying to buy an empty Walgreens building in one of the most dangerous blocks of all of Chicago to keep kids indoors after school and keep them safe from gunshots. And the building costs about $800,000, and plus, you know, taxes and lawyer fees or whatever. So $1 million would really do that trick. And you know, he called me back within 3 hours and said, let's do it. And so on the day that company went public, you know, the police officer, and she was also a CNN hero, he was out there in the streets with all the community members clanging bells, and as they rang the bell on the stock exchange. And that's going to transform the lives of children in that community. They're already using the space. We've already redone it. Now we're raising money for a capital campaign to build the indoor basketball court and to build the wraparound services and to really turn it into all that it deserves to be, and all those kids there deserve to have, so they're not dying on the weekend. And so, but that was a perfect example of a partnership born from a corporation that wanted to make a difference and was just trying to get advice on how to do it.
Andy, can I come in at this point? So I want to respond a little bit. First of all, I want to underscore how terrific that last anecdote was, but I also want to respond a little bit to the video because it uses the word innovation quite extensively as if it's a solution, and I think we have to have a caution there. There are lots of funders, it doesn't matter whether they're corporate funders, individual funders, foundations, that are so caught up in the concept of innovation that they under-respect local initiatives that could succeed if there's enough capital. The story we just heard was not a story of innovation. It was a story of somebody who was a locally based person that understood her community in a way that, as long as there could be capital, it would make the difference. And so while there's no question that innovation matters, or technology matters, things like that, funders can get so caught up in looking for the next new thing that's going to somehow be the silver bullet that will solve XYZ problem, that they under-respect the on-the-ground discipline that's there, the experience that's there, the knowledge that's there. So I just want to, as a caution, to the tendency in that video to talk about innovation, by all means, there's space for it. But good philanthropy has to take seriously that there's lots of people very close to the ground that know better than we do, sitting up at 30,000 feet. And as a matter of fact, I want to go further than that, and then I'll let others speak. But even the USAID has changed its entire approach to funding. I was present in Geneva at an international meeting co-sponsored by the UN and others and USAID, where they have now built in a condition that any grant making has to have on the ground credibility. In other words, there's no such thing as top-down philanthropy or grant making or innovation or intervention if you can show that it's credible on the ground. It's a total turnaround. So I just want to put that corrective in, because it's so easy for people in who are sitting at a remove to somehow say, oh, let's come up with the next innovation. Technology is going to solve it, or collaboration is going to solve it. When in fact, the knowledge may be right in front of you, and all they need is an infusion of resources.
So Richard, you don't think that we will have AI robots solving the world's problems? Not on the ground.
I'm not enough an expert in AI. I mean, it's I think people are still responding to the anarchy of social media, and we haven't learned how to teach about that, to mediate that, and to teach people how to read for truth. I'm a little too old to understand AI at this early stage.
Your comments remind me of the conversations that I have with my children about using their smartphones, because I'm constantly telling them it's great to have the smartphone, it's great to have the tools, at your fingertips and in your pocket, but you still need to be able to communicate with people, and sometimes it's good just to put the phone down and have a conversation face to face. Amar, as a fintech founder, what is your take on what Richard talked about? It's like getting back to basics, the importance of experience on the ground, and then combining that with technology.
I completely agree with what Richard mentioned around innovation. We strongly believe, like, as a fintech platform, our goal is not to dictate how nonprofits are spending their money, or where those dollars are used. We believe that innovation actually drives new dollars. And so where innovation is more needed, and in the video that you actually brought up, there's things like blockchain that's mentioned. That's more actually on the fundraising side. So how can different donors, whether it's donating for a birthday fundraiser on Instagram, to creating an NFT collection so you can get your entire community to give back, that's where the true innovation comes in. So we're increasing the overall dollars that are going to charitable causes. So, other nonprofits like Scott's GO Campaign can actually identify the Walgreens building and say, hey, this is where the money needs to go. That to us is how the term innovation should be used. Some other examples of things like, that change is done is, in the past, if you're familiar with platforms like Omaze, that's a great way where charitable sweepstakes, it's the younger generation, they want to give back. There's more dollars that are being raised. It's just a new revenue stream for nonprofits, just like cryptocurrency donations. Innovation should be used there to embed giving into new places where the younger generation is at, and versus more on that grant making side.
How widely used do you all of you see organizations accepting digital currencies today?
In my opinion, digital currencies it's just another currency. People are donating pounds, people are donating USD. It's just another way for, another currency for people to give. It shouldn't necessarily be, oh, hey, you should go and donate crypto instead of traditional USD. It's more about meeting donors where they're at. In the past few years, we did just see a rise in a whole new generation of donors that were giving back with cryptocurrency, because that's where they were at, and that entire industry saw a large increase in value, and those people wanted to give back. They wanted to offset the carbon emissions of every single transaction they were doing, and they needed a way to do it. And so just as an example, what we did is we released like an NFT offset calculator. We worked with a large nonprofit called Carbon Fund. They're the ones with the expertise on how to actually calculate the emissions from the electrical consumption to actually do one of these trades. We just made it really easy from a technical standpoint so people could do carbon offsets with cryptocurrency.
Well, let's move to segment 3, because I think it talks about, the other side of the innovation. In the heart of every community lies the power to drive real change. Community engagement and grassroots change is about tapping into that power, realizing the wisdom and potential of local voices. It's not about top-down directives. It's about listening, learning, and collaborating. From the Housing First approach, where asking the homeless what they needed resulted in transformative success, to the 5 steps of grassroots engagement outlined by former Mayor D. Copenhaver, the message is clear. Stay grounded, stay connected, listen carefully. Learn from everyone and be yourself. These principles foster genuine connections and create lasting change. In a world that's rapidly evolving, true grassroots engagement is not just a strategy, it's a necessity. It's about building resilient communities, nurturing innovation, and honoring the unique insights that only local perspectives can provide. Together, we can create a future where every community thrives. Richard, you've worked with many organizations. You've been involved with many organizations. What are the challenges and opportunities that you see in community engagement?
Well, so let's talk on 2 levels. So let me start with the funder level, which is where I spend most of my time in teaching them. And part of it is what's implicit in that video, and that is the tendency of people who have been very successful to think they know it all, and to assume that because they've had success and they have money, that they can mandate what should happen. Even if they do it, often it's innocent. Often it's naivete that thinks that somehow they know better than others. And part of it is because it's intimidating. There's plenty of humor about this, but when a wealthy person walks in the room, they're always the smartest, the funniest, things like that. Well, the truth is, one of the things that I have to teach people when I'm teaching philanthropists and foundation execs is how to control the power imbalance, how to control for the power imbalance. What do they need to do to make it safe for people to tell them the truth? What do they need to do to have people say no to them? What do they need to do to make sure that they're going to be given information that allows them as funders, allows us as funders to use the money wisely? So that's on the one side. The other side is and it's really the flip side of what I just said. Too often, nonprofits and organizations are so used to a level of too little capital that they're willing to settle for far less than they need to do the job. And we need to teach nonprofits, we need to teach people on that side that it doesn't do anybody any good to settle for mediocrity. And so that we need to say, we need to encourage them to say, what do you really need to be successful? We had that Chicago example a little bit earlier, but it's all over the place. It has everything to do with churches and synagogues. It has to do with schools. It has to do with every institution. How do you empower organizations to actually say what they need so that they can be successful? So that I think is on both sides. We have to tell the funders and what we have to teach to the nonprofits.
I was going to ask Scott if he has input. I hear his dog, though. His dog has something to say.
I'm dog sitting for a couple months, and I think there's a worker coming by, so I may have to do some intervention. But that model, that video you talked about, I felt like it was a video for GO Campaign. It was. That's exactly what our model is based on empowering local heroes and only listening. And only, and because so much waste has been made in the world, and there's been, it's criminal, really, all the waste that's happened in philanthropy. I think Richard, I'm sure, can agree with me over the years of well-intentioned ideas that have did not involve the conversations with the beneficiaries and the people who would know best what is involved. So that's why our model is only helping people who are from the communities with their visions, their ideas, and really just lifting up them and empowering them and helping them, these visionaries, see their dreams come true. We would never fund I've met many people who have started a great school in Africa or doing a great project in India, but they're Americans and they're like, can you help? Would GO Campaign help? And I'm like, I'm sure what you're doing is great and your school is great, but no, that's just not our model. I would never, if Richard started the program, I would only help him if it was a program in Washington, D.C. or in Philadelphia, where he's from, or I would only help Amar if it was a program in San Francisco helping youth, because you have to involve the people on the ground in grassroots. And that's the, I just believe strongly, that's the best way to really help people and to help communities.
In your experience over the years, what has worked well and what have been challenges?
In terms of just working around in these communities around the world?
Yes.
The things that work well are when you have equality in the partnerships, and when it's which is really hard to do, because you have to get over some cultural differences, and there's a lot of times that they're afraid to say something to you because they think that you're the funder, and they are trying to answer a question in a certain way that they think you want, and so you have to spend time. So one of the challenges, you need time to work with these people and to establish the proper cultural rapport and to really get on a path of communication that is open and honest and direct. So once you achieve that, and then you're really working together in synergy, in partnership, those are when amazing things happen on the ground and communities really get transformed. But that doesn't come naturally. You have to, the funders really have to, and the partners as well. You really have to work on that on both sides to understand each other. And so that's an important pre-step that a lot of, I think sometimes, people don't take that time, unfortunately, and it can lead to less than exciting results.
Amar, at Change, do you have to vet the different organizations? I'm wondering if you can share some insights from a donor's perspective. Like, how do I know which organizations are doing things well and which ones are not?
Yeah, so what we do is we typically just leave it up to the companies, or the end donors to choose what nonprofits they want to give back to. But Scott, as you were talking, that got me thinking on all that work to actually go and vet what you're funding, and I really like your ethos around like how you choose projects and like the people, and that's a lot of work. And if and it's a story that's getting told to ultimately your team on why you go and choose that specific project or that something specific to get funded there. And it would be really powerful if you can take some of that and share it with the corporation, because oftentimes, let's just take a really basic example. You're on Instagram, you're scrolling, and you see a bunch of charities. All you're seeing is the mission of the charity. You're not actually seeing how are they going about and choosing the end cause, or actually choosing how the dollars are ultimately getting used. And people, the instinct is, hey, let me just go to GuideStar or Charity Navigator, type in the charity, and I see program expenses, admin expenses, and fundraising expenses. To me, that is a very outdated way to actually evaluate a charity. I like how there's a lot of more like impact reporting that's happening, but that to me is not the full story. The full story is actually why that team chose specific reasons to use that money, because they are the experts. And if we can improve that storytelling on the front end, I think it's going to help a lot more dollars get into the hands of people who actually know how to use them.
Really true.
And I think we have to recognize that to do the diligence for everything that they fund. At a certain point, we have to make a decision that not everybody is a Scott Fifer that can spend all that time. People are working. They have a limited amount of money. They have a limited amount of time. And so Amar, I think you touched a very important point. There has to be some places where we trust that somebody else has done that due diligence. Because otherwise people feel that they can never really make a good judgment, and they can become paralyzed by that. And so that they're learning how to make those judgments, learning whom to trust, learning what due diligence matters is not easy. And it's one of the things we try to teach and you try to implement. But I also want people to feel that it's okay to trust that there might be an intermediary that's done some of that work. Or there might be a project that has proven its credibility, that in fact, even if it's not in the same city, Scott, it's legitimate to fund them. Because the concern I have is that it's too easy for people to say, gee whiz, I'll never be able to do that work to measure the impact of my dollars, so why should I bother? Why should I do it? I'm just wasting my money, or I'm just risking my money. So I think we have to recognize that some people are uniquely or specifically well endowed to be able to do that due diligence, to do that work, to spend that time. But the vast majority of people need to learn whom to trust, how to make good judgments about whom to follow or emulate, or to support along the way. That's a very big challenge. And I just want to say, and Amar, I think it speaks to you. It's particularly a big challenge as we go into the democratization of online giving, where there's no mediation of the quality of the potential organizations. I think Giving Tuesday is wonderful. I think all these kinds of things are terrific. They've made a tremendous difference. But let's not fool ourselves. There's also a sense that the average person isn't in a position to make good judgments about the quality of everything they're giving to. And so it's we're in a very robust era where we have to teach people how to make those judgments, even though not everybody can do all the due diligence.
Are there tools to do that, or is it just a matter of getting to know an organization well so that there is a relationship there?
I believe that the tools that most individuals in America go to today are the classic vetting tools, like the GuideStar and the Charity Navigators out there. For us, what we try to do is, with our platform, companies can go search from our database of charities and choose one. But at the same time, charities, which is free to access for them, have a way where they can sign up, update their information. And one of the things that we actually try to promote charities to do is add things like stories. And so they can actually take a chance, upload a video and have a moment to talk about a successful story, how they actually got there. I mean, just piggybacking off of Scott's example by talking about, hey, this is the individual we identified in Chicago. This is what the funds are going to be used for, $800,000 to actually go and buy the building. And, having that plan in place, that to me is a very powerful story. And that's going to get companies to align with those values. And it's just an easy way where then they can go and share it with their end consumers, because what they're trying to do is build engagement, drive loyalty, and do all of these things. And by having, they're going to have customers in Chicago. And if they see, oh, hey, now I can use this company, donate my rewards points that will likely be untouched for a while, and I can go give it and, help sponsor a Walgreens or, a building in Chicago to actually keep kids off the street. That's a very amazing story for them to go tell. And a lot of people will engage in that.
Yeah, I love the... Go ahead, Scott.
Just crossing my fingers from your lips to God's ears. I think that would, that's exactly what we're, trying to do, and by raising awareness of these grassroots projects all over the world.
So I'm going to comment a little bit. couldn't agree more with what was just said. I want to make a distinction. If you're talking about teaching philanthropists who are really devoted to spending their time on it, or for people who work in foundations, there are a number of programs, such as the one I'm involved in at the University of Pennsylvania, but there are others at Stanford, and there's programs at Georgetown coming along, and there's other programs. People like that really owe it to themselves to get grounded in what you need to know and how you make those decisions. But I don't think the average person needs to do that. There are though, for people that are just beginning to do it, there are programs online that you can follow. There are associations like regional grant makers associations or community foundations offer seminars that are worth doing. Many universities will offer a short-term course on philanthropy so that you can learn about these things. There are ways of building up your own knowledge base in a useful way. I do want to say one last thing, and that is, when it's a time of a disaster, that's not the time to look for innovation. Because the people that somehow say, oh, gee whiz, I'm going to find some local institution in Puerto Rico during the floods that kept them, or Haiti for that matter. The truth is, there are on-the-ground organizations that are much better suited to deal with disasters. That's not the time to do that due diligence. That's the time to support the big international organizations. Even if there's a little inefficiency in some of them, they know what they're doing in those times. If it's a long-range project, a new project, a community that you're just learning about, and you want to spend the additional time to do that innovation and find an organization that hasn't proven itself or it's relatively new, by all means do that. But responding to disasters is not the time to think that you can build in the knowledge to be responsive appropriately.
Thank you for sharing that valuable insight. I'd like to move on to segment 4. In the world of nonprofits, a delicate balance must be struck between financial sustainability and ethical considerations. It's a dance between mission and money, values and viability. How can organizations navigate this complex terrain? The answer lies in a multifaceted approach. First, define the core purpose, aligning every decision with the vision and values that guide the organization. Next, diversify income sources, exploring grants, donations, sponsorships, and more to build financial resilience. Measure and communicate impact, demonstrating the value and effectiveness of the work. Invest in capacity, enhancing skills and systems for efficient delivery. Collaborate with others, leveraging shared vision and values. And finally, adapt to changing needs, staying responsive and agile. Organizations like the Red Cross and Habitat for Humanity have shown that this balance is not only possible, but essential for long-term success and impact. In the end, it's more about just dollars and cents. It's about integrity, innovation, and the indomitable spirit of making a difference. There's a fiscal responsibility. How GO Campaign has navigated the balance between financial sustainability and other considerations?
Can you hear me?
I can.
You can. Okay. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, you froze for me, so I missed the question.
How has GO Campaign navigated the balance between financial sustainability and other considerations?
Well, it's always a challenge, especially now in a world where there are so many needs and there's so many worthwhile causes. So you have the whole world of philanthropy and all the many different charities that somebody could support. But then even in GO Campaign and our work of helping youth and children, so babies up to 25-year-olds, and with our local hero model, we have so many more requests now from projects that deserve to be funded, that we've vetted and that we would like to fund. But we have to be sure that we're going to have the financial resources to make those dreams come true. And so there are a lot of hard decisions that have to be made. Even with the example of the Chicago project with the Walgreens, like, all right, well, we want to buy that, but you just don't want to have an empty old Walgreens. Like, what's going to happen next? We want to make sure that, you know, you're going to be able to use it. And so what's the plan, and how can we make sure that's sustainable? In 2015, we took on a similarly large project in East Africa to help create a center for disabled, mentally challenged, autistic children in East Africa. And it was really to create a state-of-the-art center there that doesn't exist on the continent before. And that was a big project for us. Most of our grants are like $20,000, $30,000 grants. And this was going to take over 5 years, about $1 million. And but we saw that children were dying, and we just decided as our board of directors that this is a project that needs to be funded, and this is something we have to make happen. But it was we had to make sure that we had people who were committed to providing the resources over that time before we could say yes to that project. Because you don't, as Richard said earlier, nobody wants to do a project that's half-baked. And also you don't want to create dependency with your partners on the ground. They have to have a sustainability plan. And you want to, I've seen a lot of, in my travels, I've seen a lot of buildings that I've pointed out to people. I'm like, oh, what's that beautiful building over there? And they're like, oh, that's a school that somebody started, but then they didn't finish because they didn't have the money to pay the teachers. And so there have been so many projects like that, especially international aid projects, but even here in the US. And so to answer your point, you really want to make sure that when you're doing the work of the philanthropy, that it is you have a fiscally responsible plan in place, because otherwise, what's the point?
Richard, do you have any valuable lessons for people trying to balance mission and money?
Can I emphasize something that Scott just said? And that is, implicit there is that you develop that fiscal plan jointly. It's, in other words, if a funder comes along and says, well, you come back to me with a balanced budget, essentially you're putting them in a very dependent position. Whereas if you as a funder really care about the organization, it's developing it jointly. What are the vehicles that we can bring to the table that are going to help you? Should we be bringing other funders that you can't bring to the table? Should we be doing development training for your staff that otherwise wouldn't have it? Are there ways in which we as funders can say, we're really committed to this, and let's talk about what the total range of needs are, and how can we help you get there so that the day that our funding may stop, you're going to be successful. And that's really a matter. It's not a matter of the organization saying what kind of balance of funding do they have to put on the table, but rather we as funders have to say, what are the kinds of total needs that are going to exist? What are the many roles that we can play as funders that are responsible roles, so that at the end of the day, there's not an empty school building. There's not a group of kids that had shoes. I'm not saying this is your example. Shoes for 3 years and suddenly the funder walked away. It's that joint planning about looking at the total resources that we bring to the table and do it jointly and saying, what are we going to need to implement so that this really works? And that requires, and the onus is on the funder to do that, because as the others have said, funders can be intimidating. Funders are scary. People are afraid to say no to the funder. We have the responsibility as funders to make sure that we have those things happen and not depend on the organization to somehow second guess what they're going to need to be successful down the road.
Great points. I want to move on to our last segment, technology's role. In the ever-evolving landscape of philanthropy, technology is not just a tool, it's a catalyst for change. From digital fundraising platforms like GoFundMe to the innovative use of blockchain for transparency, technology is reshaping how we give, connect, and make an impact. Imagine virtual reality tours of project sites, creating immersive experiences that deepen empathy and understanding. Consider the power of data analytics, turning raw numbers into actionable insights that drive targeted campaigns and evaluate effectiveness. Social media is no longer just a place to share. It's a platform to mobilize communities and amplify voices. Events like Giving Tuesday and 10 Cents 99 Giving Day showcase the global reach and gamification of giving, turning charity into an engaging and enjoyable experience. But with innovation comes responsibility. How do we ensure ethical considerations, especially concerning data privacy? How do we encourage more nonprofits to embrace digital transformation without losing sight of their core mission? The future of philanthropy is here, and it's digital, diversified, and dynamic. It's a future where technology empowers us to be more logical, more connected, and more human in our generosity. Amar, if you can kick us off, how is technology changing how people approach philanthropy?
At a very high level, technology makes it really, really easy for people to give back in the way that is best for them. Way back when, when the internet first started, it was just as simple as adding a donate button to a nonprofit's website. So instead of writing a check every year, people can now go and donate directly. Your video did a great job covering. There's a lot of different ways where you can give back by donating crypto on the blockchain. You can give back on social media now, and it's really interesting. What we are really trying to do, and your video actually touched on this at the end, is convincing nonprofits that technology makes it really easy. And so anytime we get the ability to get in front of nonprofits, what we say is, hey, you likely have a lot of corporate partners who go in and once a year they write a big check to you, and they are at the top of the list on your corporate donors. What you should do is go and tell them, hey, continue giving like this, but add us into your existing ecosystem. And what that looks like is now that company, it might be a traditional retailer, they can add that nonprofit as a rewards option directly in their platform. Every single time a new company gets a sign up, they can make a donation. And so, there's a lot of cool ways where you can embed giving into these day-to-day actions, and that's going to increase the overall pie. Throughout this conversation, we've talked about different things like diversifying revenue streams for nonprofits. We've talked about different ways that nonprofits can embed technology. But all this, what it comes down to is, everybody wants to do these types of things, but it's just really hard. And you go to the corporations and they're going to say, hey, I want to do something that's a little unique than the next one, because they want to set themselves apart. And so by being a donation processor, what we encourage is say, hey, you can have the level of customization you want. Everything's going to be in your ecosystem. It's going to be white labeled, but give back in all these different actions. You don't need to be doing all these, running ads. Instead of running ads, go and say, hey, we'll make a donation if you make a referral. There's a lot of creative ways that can happen, and nonprofits are already in front of the corporations because they're getting these large checks. They should be the ones that say, hey, go and create this new way to give, and we'll just make it really, really easy.
Sally Struthers commercials on TV. Richard, your thoughts?
If I may, I want to come to the ethics issue. And I want to put something on the table that we haven't really talked about. So far, in the development of technology, there's been a lot of self-governance and therefore a lot of abuse. Frankly, I think that it's short-sighted for us not to recognize that we need to have public policy involved in setting appropriate ground rules. I think that to assume that any industry can self-govern when they have self-interest in certain kind of results is a little bit naive, and we've seen that in the financial industry. We've seen it in all sorts of places. As we're getting into the complex realm of AI and social media and all the technology, we we really need to push very hard for there to be a public policy, which means government setting some ground rules as to what the ethics are, how that gets implemented, what's privacy, how is that enforced. So your video very much mentioned the ethics issue. I'm just saying that I think we have to take that very seriously, and we may really have to push hard and recognize that this is an area where only with the not unique government, but with government involvement are we really going to achieve the ethics.
Richard, you froze a bit for me at the end. I don't know if that was for everybody or not. If you can just repeat that last sentence for us.
For me?
Yes, I don't know if you could recall it now, but your last sentence cut out.
Well, okay, well, I guess, can you hear me now? I'm sorry. I guess that we're all having a little bit of technology issues today. You see, it proves the point. I guess that, I don't remember the exact sentence, how I worded it, but I guess I would say that one of the implications of the fast development of technology as a source in this sector, as in every other sector, requires that we can't allow for self-governance. There needs to be an involvement of government policy and ground rules so that the ethics are not simply abstractions, but that but they're enforceable on every part of the industry. And I think we need that as we go into this realm. I think we've seen over the last few years that social media has not been very good at self-policing itself in terms of, I don't want to, we can easily get into politics, but I don't think it's been good at policing itself in terms of privacy, in terms of protection of privacy, in terms of degree of honesty or integrity. I think that maybe that's their fault, maybe it's not their fault, but I think we have to be committed to saying, as a society, if we're serious about the ethics of technology, we really have to have public policy related to it. Could you hear that one?
Thank you. Scott, since you're running an organization as a founder, I feel like government is challenged because technology is just moving at such a fast pace. Just in the last year, we've seen how AI is changing, I think, people's daily lives so quickly, and potentially it's just going to move faster and faster. But as a leader of an organization, what is your feeling for government regulation? I think that it's always hard when you're potentially being the one regulated, and it adds a lot of complexity to the work that you're doing already.
Well, sure, and it sort of depends on where the government regulation comes in, right? I mean, as Richard said, talking about government regulation of AI, I mean that's that certainly makes sense. And then, I mean, governments regulate charities, of course, from the IRS to your state attorney generals, and that's very important because they make sure that things are transparent. And it might, yes, maybe it's not the most efficient way that things are being done. I don't think anyone's ever accused the IRS of being efficient, but they are keeping an eye on things, and somebody's got to do that. And same with the state registrars. And so there has to be a mix, right? You have to find a balance. In terms of our work, we always try to work without any governments and working just directly with the grassroots organization. Our motto is that we cut out the red tape wherever we can see it and find it. And so you want to avoid government on that front, like keep them out of the weeds, right? The government should be there to make sure that you're operating honestly and transparently, but then step back and let the people who know what they're doing, execute the work. And so that's the place for it.
Well, I want to thank all three of you for joining today, especially on short notice, and having a very thought-provoking conversation and sharing your ideas and experiences. I will share that, hopefully I get this all right, but Scott's GO Campaign is gocampaign.org. You can go to find out more. Richard is at wisephilanthropy.com. And I'll tell you why I'm challenged. It's because everybody has different domain endings. Not everybody is at .com. Amar is at getchange.io. So I want to thank you guys for participating and for sharing your experiences with all of us. Really appreciate it. And I hope that everybody will tune in again next week. We've got a great show in store. Please, if you like this, leave a comment, share it, and go visit and support all of these organizations and companies represented here. It's been a great, inspiring discussion on giving. So thank you so much.
Thanks.